Finally, forgive yourself. Another source of lingering guilt is the inability to forgive yourself. Someone might say, the person may forgive me, and God may forgive me, but I simply cannot forgive myself. Okay? The sin is just too bad for me to let myself off the hook. Okay? Let me address that with 3 little short points here. First thing you need to know about this. Don't you realize that forgiveness is actually the only solution to your guilt? It's the only solution. Do you realize that you can't actually ever pay back a significant wrong? How could my Father ever pay me back for what He did to me? He can't do it. It's too much harm. How can He pay me back for all the emotional scarring, for all the tears, for all the shame that I took, for all the emptiness inside, for all the alcohol that I drank, and all the things that I did because He wasn't there? He can never pay it back. If I steal your pen, I can probably pay that back. But if I hurt you enough that I feel guilt about it 30 years later, there is no way I can pay it back. Forgiveness is the only solution. You've got this guilt and you want to do something with it. Well, you only have 2 options. You can keep beating yourself up, and you can keep swimming in the guilt, and you can keep swimming in the depression, or you can realize that the only way to get rid of it is through forgiveness. Now, the second thing, this sin that you did to this other person, and all of its negative consequences, all the bad things that came out of it, is a part of God's plan for you and the other person. You say, I can't forgive myself. This is too bad. But God, in His sovereignty, allowed this to come into your life and to theirs. God allowed my father to walk out the door. He allowed that sin and its consequences to come into his life and my life. God is in complete control, even of this. You see, you're thinking it's so bad, how could you let it go? Well, you have to come to the realization that God allowed this to happen. And in His sovereignty, He has purposed good from it. God is over all, even the bad things we do, and those done to us. In fact, He uses those things to bring good into our lives and the lives of others. Joseph saw this. Go back to Genesis real quick. Let me show you this verse here. We started here in Genesis, so we're going to go back to what Joseph said when he saw this. All right, so Joseph finally reveals himself. Now look at what he says here, everybody. And this is what you've got to come to terms with if you're going to be able to let yourself off the hook for this. And Joseph said to his brothers, please come near to me. So they came near. Then he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Now look, listen to this, everybody. All of you who cannot forgive yourself because you think it was so bad and the consequences are so bad. But now, do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. Okay, so whatever you did in the past, do not be grieved or angry about it anymore. Okay? For God sent me before you to preserve life. Who sent Him? Who sent Him? God did. Who sent Wes through this situation with his father? God did. Who sent you through your situation? God did. For these 2 years the famine has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor reaping. And here it is again. And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. Well, if you didn't get it, let me say it again. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. You see, if you're going to forgive yourself, you have to realize that God Himself ordered things to play out the way they did. And He did it for a good purpose, so that His name would be glorified and good things would come from it. Finally, here's a core problem that people have when they can't forgive themselves. Let me ask you this. Are you holier than God? Is your judgment of right and wrong, and of who should pay or be forgiven, greater than His? Is the courtroom of your mind where you sit as judge greater than the court where God sits as judge of all the earth? Why do I ask this? Because if you have asked God for forgiveness, the Creator Himself, and He has said, you're released, there is no debt anymore, you're forgiven, it's like you never did it, and then you can't forgive yourself, what are you saying? My judgment of right and wrong is higher than yours. See that? Lord, I know you set the standard right here and you'll release me, but my standard's a little bit higher, and I'm sorry, I just cannot release myself. I'm kind of joking, but you see, you have actually made yourself God. And you have to humble yourself. If the judge of all the earth says, Trish, you are released, who in the world are you to keep holding on to that debt?